Hello and welcome to the latest in our series of our Seder plates. This is a series of short videos in which I'm interviewing some of our Kingston Liberal Synagogue members about their Seder plates and about their traditions. And I'm really happy now to be joined by Rabbi Janet Darley, who has been a member of Kingston Liberal Synagogue now for 30 years, just over 30 years, I think. So thank you very much for joining us, Rabbi Janet. So let's get started. Show us your Seder plate and tell us a little bit about it, please.
So this is our Seder plate, and it's something that Vince and I actually bought in San Francisco from an artist, and we bought it literally right after we'd gotten married. So we were married in one place in the States, and then went across for some visits to some friends and ended up in San Francisco. And we were walking along in by an art gallery, and we saw the Seder plate, and we decided that that would be the perfect thing to buy. So we did.
It's beautiful. How long ago was that?
That would have been 1991.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's stunning, isn't it? It's really, really lovely.
I loved it because it's metal and it's not, if you drop it, you won't break it.
Yeah, that would be, be good for those of us who are the more clumsy disposition.
And of course it does have little insets.
Of course. And what do you put anything special or interesting on your Seder plates, Janet?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we obviously put the basic things, but one thing that I've put on Seder plate for, I guess, getting on for more than 30 years, because even when I was in the States, was an orange.
Mm-hmm.
And that started a number of years ago by Susanna Heschel, who began to put an orange on her Seder plate, symbolizing a way of including lesbians, the LGBTQI community, and indeed other people who had often been excluded from the Seder. So we always put that on. Sometimes I put different things on. I usually will put on something about modern slavery, because I think that Passover always is about being free. So I'll often use some fair trade coffee beans, because one of the most common places that we find today that slavery occurs is in picking coffee and chocolate. So I usually have something like that. And oftentimes olives, symbolizing cooperation between, or peace ultimately, which we hope for, peace between Palestinians and Israelis, which sometimes seems to get just further and further away. And I think something new that I've come across is the idea of putting a spoon on Seder plate, symbolizing maybe people with disabilities, but also it's a symbol of nurturing and nourishing. So not only trying to make space for people who might find it difficult to access Seders as many of us do, sometimes because of very visible disabilities, or sometimes because of hidden disabilities. But also perhaps even more meaningful in this pandemic year, that maybe we all need to be conscious of trying to nourish our friends in some different ways than we might not have thought about previously. Those
really
are the kinds of things that go on my Seder plate. And then there's usually a Miriam's cup, because water, again, is very symbolic of women and their role. And I guess how that's all come about really is just over the years, with things evolving. The first Seder that I ever went to, as someone who was in the process of choosing Judaism, because I knew quite a lot of Hebrew, I got to be an honorary man. So I got to actually attend the Seder while the women were in the kitchen.
I see. Things have come on quite a long way since then, thankfully.
Oh yes, that was 1972.
Right. And since then, so Janet, can you tell us a little bit about your own traditions since 1972 in terms of your own Seders?
Yes, I can. My Seders are nearly always, to a certain extent, political with a small p. because I guess I'm always conscious of bringing out what I think are the themes, obviously, about liberation. The first Haggadah that I ever looked at was the Freedom Seder, which was put together by Art Waskow back in 1960 something, in the context of the U.S. civil rights movement in the United States, and some work that he was doing with a neighboring Black church. And so I guess that always struck me with the power of using the Seder and thinking about what was going on around you and pulling out those things. So I've been involved in a lot of Seders. When I first came here, I was part of a Seder outside of South African embassy. So that was another kind of freedom. And I guess it's always been that, about liberation, about sometimes that can be actual physical liberation. Sometimes it's liberating ourselves from the things that constrain us, so physical or mental. Journeying, I think, and I think that's something that in a way is speaking to me a lot this year.
Well, let's come on and talk about this year then, because obviously this Pesach that we're just coming up to, it's our second one in lockdown as a result of obviously the COVID-19 pandemic. So first of all, what are your plans for this year, and also what are your thoughts about this year given the circumstances?
Well, we are planning to do a Zoom Seder. I'm just in the process of inviting people. I've got a couple of friends who've shared Seder with us a number of times. And I'm thinking of inviting some people. In fact, today I'm going to message somebody and see if he wants to come, somebody who's never been to a Seder, but I have a feeling might be interested in it because, yeah, I think he would, because he's been quite interested in what I do as a rabbi.
Great.
So, and then, we'll just see whoever else, a friend, there's several other people who often join us. And so I'm just getting onto it. I'm a bit late. I usually try to do my Seder invites right after Purim, but somehow this year, everything seems to move more slowly.
It's not a typical year, is it? So what are the themes of this year's Seder going to be, Janet, for you?
I think a lot of it will be about journeying, and how really, if you think about Passover, it's a story. I think there are two things that I always do talk about. One is where the story starts, really back with Joseph and Egypt, and Joseph sending for his family, and how they were there as refugees, and how they were welcomed, and then things went wrong. And I guess I'm still very conscious of what's happening with refugees. So that's always going to be something that's going to show up in my Seder, because it's really something that we're very much facing today. And of course, because the words of the Seder that and the Torah bit about the Seder really does, it's one of the places that we get a number of times where we talk about how we should treat the stranger, and that we must respect them. And so I think it's that. And then the whole thing of journeying, because we've all been on quite a journey.
Absolutely.
And we've all been, maybe in some ways, felt ourselves to be constrained. I think Mitzrayim, what we always translate, or often translate as Egypt, really means the narrow place. And I guess for all of us this year, we've been in a very, very narrow place. Some people more than others have been really constrained to their houses, and separated from friends, and how we've tried to continue, I guess, coming out of that. I know now a number of people who have been vaccinated who are actually already still very nervous about going out and saying, well, I don't know, I don't feel safe. So there's just a lot going on this year, and I've not fully decided how I'm going to play with that. I mean, obviously I'll use a basic Haggadah, but this year I think I'm going to be not using the Haggadah as much, but doing more narrative and just more telling, and maybe asking people, because I always do ask people to contribute, and I know you joined us one
Yes, yep.
one year, and but I think this year there's going to be a lot more contribution, because last year we did a Zoom Seder, and I realized it was really very boring because we were doing a lot of reading, Vince and I, of the Haggadah, and I just thought, oh, that's not very
this
good.
year
So
you're going to make it a little bit
I'm going
more
to try to really give people some ideas about, please
collaborative.
come with this thought, bring this in, be ready to share something about this, and we'll see, I guess,
It sounds
where we go.
it sounds amazing, and definitely I think that sense of the journey, and I love the thing about Mitzrayim being, that narrow place that absolutely we have all been in. Janet, I hope it all goes really well. I'm sure it will. And thank you for joining me. And thank you for sharing your Seder plate with us.
Well, you're very welcome.